Yo, what is up guys, Graham here, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the 3.15 nerfs. So I've tried to make this video a lot of times, a ton of times in fact, and overall it's incredibly difficult to get your thoughts out, and I had a really hard time with it, so I'm going to go straight up with an analogy. And this is an analogy I started off talking about on the Faded Connections podcast, but I think it sums up the state of Path of Exile pretty well. Overall, we're going to start off with 3.13. So 3.13 was pretty much, most people consider this the best state of Path of Exile ever. And that's what you're seeing in the background here. This is the peak performance. It's the point in which most of our characters were the most powerful. It's the point in which the most builds were viable. Most options were open to us. You could basically do anything you wanted in the entire game. Content was the cheapest it's ever been. Builds were the cheapest it's ever been. And you could make perfect items. So it was basically lauded as the holy grail of Path of Exile. All right. So that is pretty damn good. I do want to pose one thought though. So where do you go from here? How do you top 5 Orb Delirium with maximum juice, with a build that could smash it and all sorts of stuff like that? As a designer, what do you introduce that would get players excited? From a crafting perspective, if players have the ability to completely create any item they want, edit pretty much any modifier they want on an item, and freely create best in slot gear, what do you add to top that? That is an interesting question. I actually don't know. The only thing that they could add is more difficult content, so like T19 maps or something like that. Or they could also add, like a double mod or triple mod or awakened mods or something like that. You basically just have to go further and further down the rabbit hole overall to keep on getting the player more and more exciting. It's like more cream, keep piling on the excess. I'm not saying that that's a wrong strategy, and a lot of games do that. I'm just genuinely curious where you go from the Ritual League, where you had pretty much everything the game had to offer you on display, and how long that would stay interesting. I don't personally know, but overall, I think it's a pretty good thing. The other thing I will say here is my overall stance on the changes is that the design decisions made by Grinding Gear Games were heavy-handed, in my opinion, and they didn't really, in my opinion, consider the amount of builds, playstyles, and everything that they were absolutely butchering with their changes. For example, Cast on Crit is pretty much unplayable now, and I think that that's a real shame. A lot of Herald builds are still I think that there's a lot of stuff you still can do, but a lot of them are in a pretty sorry state, and a lot of them are pretty unsung as well. And you won't hear too many people complaining about them because they don't have a voice on social media, right? A lot of builds just kind of faded away, and they're just not really that viable anymore. So yeah. Alright, so overall, I think the design changes were heavy-handed, but they were necessary. I think all the design changes, if I was in the room with them when they were proposing them, I probably would have agreed. The fast changes, all sorts of stuff like that, I think were correct for the health of the game and moving forward with the game's longevity and opening up design space for new ways to play Path of Exile. I think they were required. That's 3.14 and 3.15. Again, I think they could have been way more delicate, way more intelligent about the changes, but obviously they worked on a very tight schedule, and a lot of things had to be sacrificed for that, apparently. Okay, moving on. So while they were necessary, we did sacrifice a lot. And moving forward, I think that overall, with the exception of the Expedition League, which is fantastic, with the exception of maps as well in that league, that's a discussion for another time. 3.15 is actually less fun to play than 3.14, and 3.14 was less fun to play than 3.13. So it is becoming a less fun game to play as a core game. There's less builds on offer, and there's less stuff that you can do with your character freely. That's pretty much a fact, and it's undisputable. All right, next up though, I'm going to finish this video off with an analogy. So 3.13, picture it as a full bowl of very, very tasty soup. All right. And then 3.14 rolls around, you come in, you're used to getting your full bowl of tasty soup, which is Ritual League, and you turn up at the table and you get half a bowl of very, very tasty soup. You're disappointed. You're not happy with it, but it's still that tasty soup. You take it, you eat it, but you're not left full. All right, 3.15 rolls around. Well, you come into the shop, you get your bowl of soup. This time, it's a quarter full, man. Where's the rest of the soup, you say? But, overall, you still have your soup, but there's just not much, there's not much of it left overall. So it just doesn't feel that good. And in 3.16, maybe you turn up and there's just no soup left. That's kind of how it is for a lot of people. If you guys didn't know, the soup is the fun. Now, the thing that I think would have made this a little bit different is if the soup, when instead of going from a full bowl of soup to half a bowl of soup, instead of coming in and getting soup, you got a piece of cake. Now, unbeknownst to you, this was half a piece of cake. It wasn't a full piece of cake, it was half. You would still enjoy that cake. You would love it. Even though it was a half a piece of cake and not a full piece of cake, you didn't know, right? And basically what I'm saying here is if they had coupled these sweeping destructive nerfs with new content, brand new build defining skills, like I'm talking like light poacher, headhunter, like the gloves last league, what were they called? Hate Forge, Winter Orb level, tornado shot level, that kind of stuff here. That level of new juice to make it feel real fresh. I don't think that anyone would be as pissed off as they are. If you were getting a new taste of Path of Exile, not the one we're normally used to, we would have been probably better off. So I probably would have saved these changes, these massive nerfs, for the Christmas patch, in which they're going to undoubtedly make big changes to bosses, the endgame atlas, and builds. I think it just would have been much better off. Of course, this is a very risky business move. The Christmas patch, I understand, is their biggest patch, and potentially jeopardizing that is a big issue. Overall, I think that probably would have set better with the players, but it's not my decision overall, and that's just my opinion. So I hope you guys have enjoyed my video. It's been pretty difficult to make this one. That's kind of where I sit. I'm very, very hopeful with the overall kind of theme of Path of Exile. I think the design decisions in a vacuum were correct, and they will be good for the health of the game. As soon as we get past the nerfs, it's undoubtable that we'll basically be going back up the power scale. We'll be getting new and exciting things, new and exciting skills, and it'll be straight back to normal business as usual, where we get leagues like Delirium, where everything's new and shiny, and we're getting as powerful as we've ever become before, and all sorts of stuff like that. We will be there back eventually, but right now we're riding it out. We're going through the nerf apocalypse, and it's kind of going to be the dark age for a little bit, as all the power is stripped away, and then we get it all back over the years to come. That's kind of where I'm at. That's what I'm seeing, and I'm here for good, baby. You can't get rid of me. I'm going to be playing, min-maxing, and looking for new builds wherever I can. So if you want to come down for the ride, make sure you sub and like, and hopefully you guys are going to turn up in the leagues to come, and I'll be right there with you. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.